Well, the story of Apollo 8 is kind of interesting. It was going to be a Earth orbital flight around the Earth. Apollo 8 was going to take up the lunar module to test it for the very first time. And it was going to be about an 8-day flight, but just around the Earth. Two things occurred in the summer of 1968 that changed completely. The first thing was that Grumman Aircraft, the builder of the lunar module, finally told NASA there was no way they could get a lunar module ready for a flight by 1968. It would slip into 1969. The second thing that we found out through intelligence was that the Russians were going to put a man or men around the moon in the December period or the fall period of 1968. And so, looking at that, and look at the need that we promised President Kennedy, we try to get a landing on the moon before the end of the decade. We decided to change the mission right there and tried to make sure that it used Apollo 8 instead of around the Earth, was to take the command service module only because we didn't have a lunar module, and we'd sent it to the moon. It was about 4 months of intense training that we had to do that. I had to go to MIT to learn the navigation because going to the moon was a long range navigation using the celestial sphere, whereas around the Earth was in terms was kind of simple. We had to learn the communications, that would be different. We had to check the spacecraft out thoroughly before we could do that. And consequently, on December 21st, we started off on our lunar voyage. It was kind of airstream. It took us 3 days to get there, and we approached the moon on its dark side. I mean, there was just a sliver of the moon if you looked at it from Earth. And so we started our engine to get captured by the moon. We didn't see the moon at all. But the NASA said that, yeah, you're getting very close, and we had the engine go on and slow down, and then suddenly the moon, of course, started us around into orbit, and then the Earth, the sunlight came up, and the sunshine started to look at the tops of the peaks of the craters on the far side, and as you all know, we never see the far side of the Earth, or the moon, from Earth, because it always keeps the far side away from us. We were like 3 school kids looking into a candy store window, and just looking at everything. But then, as we orbited around, coming around on the horizon was the Earth. And that was perhaps the greatest thing I've ever seen at that particular time, because I could see the Earth come up, and I could put my thumb up to the window, and I've mentioned this many times, but I could put the entire Earth behind my thumb. You have to think about that for a while. 3 billion people, oceans, mountains, everything else, deserts, everything I ever knew was behind my thumb. And it gave you a sense of feeling of just, how do I fit into this thing? And that's my home back there. And now I can lose it completely behind my thumb. It's a thought that you ought to think about. And where we are, because I thought about it for a while, and I said, when I arrived on the Earth, I arrived on a planet of sufficient gravity to have water and an atmosphere, the very essentials for life. And I arrived on a planet that was orbiting a star at just the right distance, not too far out to be too cold, in too close to be too hot, at just the right distance to provide the energy. And it was that energy that caused life to evolve in the first place. So you have to think about your own position here and how lucky we all are to be on Earth and enjoy what we have.
You are a poet.